Hello, and welcome to Maths with myself, Mr. Bevan. I hope you're having a marvellous Monday. And today, for our random question of the day, you might be able to infer what it is from this. It is, of course, what is your favourite flavour of ice cream? And if you don't like ice cream, what dessert would you rather have? So, personally, for my favourite flavour of ice cream, I'd definitely have to go with cookie dough. So it's not even an option that's on there, but I'd have to go with cookie dough by Ben Jerry's. It's just delicious. But I say, look forward to hearing what your favourite flavour of ice cream is. So, today in maths, we're looking to use our division that we looked at on Thursday and Friday last week to try and solve some problems. And obviously, as it is a Monday, we will recap a lot of our division learning that we did for last week. So, if you'd like to pause here to get your waltz in, and then hit play to resume. So, moving on to today's starter. Today's starter heavily focuses on division, but there are also other skills involved. So, first one, I've given you 39 apples, an array of 39 apples. How many calculations can you create from this array? So look carefully, you should be able to see 2 multiplication questions, 2 division questions. Of course, the number 39 is going to appear somewhere in there. You might be able to come up with some more question calculations. So say, give it a go. See if you can give them 4 calculations, see if you can find them. And in our second starter for today, can you complete these division questions using the counters and grids? So you've got 72 counters there, representing our tens and ones. So you can use these counters for both questions. However, the first one where we're dividing by 3, you've got 3 columns. Next one where we're dividing by 6, you've got 6 columns. Another important thing to note is you're always going to be left with 1 10. What are you going to have to do with this 10? Can you remember how we regroup when we're dividing? So that's a big clue there. So say, hit pause, give these a go. If you really are stuck, it's fine. Just hit play and we'll talk through the answers together. So welcome back. Our first starter, 39 apples. How many calculations can we come up with? Well, first of all, I think if you remember back to multiplication lessons, I know it was a long time ago, first thing that's important to do, I think, is to label the rows and the columns. So we've got 3 rows there, each containing 13 apples. So therefore we know that 3 lots of 13 equals, of course, the total amount of apples there are, which is 39. Because you can count up in 13s or 3s, depending on your preference. In 13s there's 13, 26, 39. And then we can also, 3 times 13 is exactly the same as saying 13 times 3, which is also equal to 39. Our division questions? Well, if you remember from our families, our multiplication and division families, we can just flip our multiplication questions. So we can do 39 divided by 3 equals, of course, 13. And then we've also got 39 divided by 13 equals 3. So if we was asked, for example, we've got 39 apples, we can get 13 in a bag. How many bags would we need? We'd only need 3 bags. Or vice versa, if there was 39 apples and you can only get 3 in a bag because they're small bags or really big apples, you can put 13 in each. Sorry, you'd need 13 bags. So that's really important to remember. And our second division question, using the grids, I said that there's always going to be 1 10 left over. What we're going to have to do with that. So straight away, I'm going to group that 10 into 10 ones, just so I'm prepared, and then I can do both questions. So 7 10s divided by 3, or in fact now I've got 6 10s, but dividing that by 3, I've got 2 in each column shared equally. So I've got 2 10s, and sharing the ones out, I have 4 ones, one up shared equally. So therefore my answer is 24. And when I'm dividing it by 6, I can only get 1 10 in each column this time. And then with the ones, I can only get 2 ones in each column. So my answer is 12. And you notice when the divisor's doubled, my answer's halved. So that's an interesting one to notice. When the divisor gets bigger, our answer usually gets smaller. So, onwards with today's lesson. We're going to recap the bus stop method. So here is our bus stop. What numbers are going to go where again? Well, of course, our divisor the number we're dividing by, our 3, is going to go outside of the bus stop, and our bus is the number we're dividing, which is 87. And what column do we start with? Well, we start with whatever's closest to our number 3, our divisor. In this case, it's our tens column, which is our 8, and we're going to ask how many 3's go into 8. There are 2 methods now to solve this. Our first method is by using our grids. So we're going to need 3 columns because we're dividing by 3. And then we're going to get our 8 tens. We're going to divide that by 3. So there's our first lot. There's our second group. What about these 2? Well, of course, the last 2 tens I can't divide into our grid because then there'll be an unequal amount. And of course, we're sharing equally. So there are 2 tens in 8 with remainder 2, with 2 to be regrouped. A second method, which hopefully should give us the same answer, is we're going to find the number closest to, but less than 8, in the divisors times table. Our divisor, of course, is 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. It's kind of close to 8, but 2 times 3, 6, is even closer. What about 3 times 3? Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and that, of course, is too big, because our number has to be less than or equal to. So we're going to recognise, using the past times table, that there are 2 3's in 8. But how are we going to find our remainder? Well, we're going to do it by doing 8 of the number in the tens column, take away the 6, which is 2 times 3, and that equals 2. So we've also got 2 left over. So there are 2 3, and there's also a remainder of 2. And that is backed up by both methods. Now onwards with the next part, we're now going to move on to the ones column. So once again, let's draw up our 2 methods to see how many 3's go into 27. Well, method 1, we can do our ones grid, and there are 3 columns, and we had to regroup them 2 tens into ones, meaning we've got 27 ones. And you might be able to see instantly this method's going to be quite long-winded, however it does still work. So let's give it a go. Let's divide them all up, and there's equal columns of 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9. There are 9 3's in 27. How else can we prove that? We can once again use this method. 10 times 3 equals 30, so that's too big. 9 times 3 equals 27 exactly. So I know there are 9 3's in 27. And there is no remainder because 27 take away 27. Just to prove it, it's 0, which I'm sure you already know. So therefore, there are 29 3's in 87. And there we go, just to recap the 2 different methods. So now let's recap the bus stop method with a 3-digit number, and also see what happens when there's still things left over after a ones column. So let's have a look at this method. So first of all, we're going to draw our bus stop as normal. There we go, our divisors on the outside, our number in the middle. And this time, we're not going to start with the tens, because of course for 2, it's closest to our divisor. So we're going to start just here in our hundreds this time. Obviously, if we had our thousands, we'd start in the thousands column. We're going to start with whatever number is closest to our divisor. Let's do our 2 methods again. For our hundreds, we've got 2 hundreds, but why can they not fit in our grid? Because we've got 3 columns, we've got 2 hundreds. Well, they can't fit in because they wouldn't be shared equally, would they? So according to this method, we're going to have to regroup the 2. Let's see if the second method agrees. So we're going to find a number closest to but less than 2 in the divisors times table. Well, instantly, 1 times 3 is equal to 3. So that's too big. So we're now going to have to use 0 times 3, which is of course 0. So 2 take away the 0 times 3 equals 2. So there's 0 3's in 2, and there's 2 left over. So there we go. 0 3's in 2, and 2 left over. So now let's move on to the tens. Well, firstly, we're going to have to regroup our hundreds as well as the 110. So we're going to be left with 21 tens. Now let's put them into our grid. Now it's slightly messier, but there are an equal amount. There are 7 10s in each column. Let's check out it's correct with method 2. Well, let's find a number closest to or equal to 21 in the divisor's timetable. So 5 times 3 is 15. That's close, but I'm sure we can get closer. 6 times 3, 18. Closer still. And 7 times 3 is exactly 21. So we can use that to find there's 7 3s in 21. How many is left over? Well, of course, 21 take away 21 is 0, so there's nothing left over. So there's 7 3s in 21. And now finally, we're going to move on to our ones column. So for ones, we've once again got our 2 methods. So first of all, our grid method. Here are 7 ones. Let's share them equally. Now the problem is, I still have 1 left out. Let's just check with the second method and then we'll see what we do with that 1 left over. So we'll say we've got 2 1s with 1 left over. So we're going to find the number closest to but less than 7 in the divisor's timetable for 3s again. So 1 times 3 is 3, kind of close to 7. We can definitely get close with 2 times 3, which equals 6. So that is as close as we're going to get. So we know there are 2 3s in 7. And just to prove that we can't get any closer, 3 times 3 of course is 9, which is too big. And then to find the difference, 7 take away 6 equals 1. So we got 2 3s in 7 with 1 left over. So there's our 2. And our 1 left over now, because there's no column to regroup it into, and because we're not going into decimals, we're just going to have remainder 1. So therefore, 217 divided by 3 equals 72 remainder 1, or just R1. And we've got the 2 different methods to show that underneath. So we've got the method of the timetables of what we did and how we got our leftover columns, as well as our grid method. So now we've got that in mind, give this question a try. 78 divided by 5. You can use the method that suits you. However, of course, draw your bus stop to get you started. If you're unsure, delay 5 seconds, hitting pause, and I'll show you how to start. Well, here is how to start. We've got a bus stop method. You've got method 1, which is your 7 10s and 5 10s column to split between. You've got method 2. I've given you the first 2 numbers in the 5 times table, the divisors times table. You're going to have to find a number closest to but less than 7, and then take 7 away from that answer to give the number. You're going to have to regroup. So hit pause and then give this a try. Well, firstly, if you're using grid method, you can fit your 5 10s in, 1 in each column, but you can have 2 left over. And then using method 2 in the 5 times table, well, the only one that's closest to but less than 7 is of course 1 times 5. And then to find what's left over to regroup, 7 take away 5, or the difference between 5 and 7 is 2. So therefore your answer is a 1 5 in 7 with 2 left over. So your answer is 1 with 2 regrouping. Then finally, you're going to have to of course do the 1 column. So let's do my 28 ones into my grid. Here are my, if you want, once again, if you're not quite finished, you can now pause and give it a go yourself. But let's split them 28 ones into a grid. I've got 5 ones in each column, but with 3 left over in the grid. And using times table, what's the number closest to but less than 28? Ignore the number 9 there if that's a mistake. And then how many was left over? Well, 30 is too big, so it's going to have to be 5 times 5, which equals 25. So therefore, there are 5 5s in 28. And let's look what's left over. 28 take away 5. 25 is 3. Our grid method matches up with that perfectly. So there's a remainder of 3. So 78 divided by 5 equals 15 R3. So Your next task. I now want you to give a go to the 6 worksheet questions on the Google Classrooms. Remember, we learn from our mistakes, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. With worksheets, and like with assessments, I do not mind which question number you start from. Start from one you'll feel most confident with, perhaps, and ease your way into it. If there are questions you cannot do, we will go through the answers at the end very quickly, but if there are ones you want me to go through in detail, for example, please do ask, and I'm more than happy to help as best as possible. And one last thing I would like to say is you're more welcome to either do the answers on the sheet and working out in books, do it all on sheets, or even do it all in books, whatever suits you. If you cannot access the sheets on Google Classrooms, here are other questions, so you may pause and copy the answers out into your books. So here are the first 3 questions. As I pause here, if you don't have access to worksheet, then hit play. And here are the next 3 questions, question 4 to 6. If you don't have access, press pause here, give them a go, then hit play. And now, here are our answers. So question 1A, we had to answer 14. 14 exactly fit into the grids. I've even shown you how we had 10 left over, as well as our 6 ones. So we had 16, which were split into 4 ones. And for 68 divided by 3, we had 22 remainder 2, because 6 divided by 3 is 2 in the tens column, 8 divided by 3 is 2 remainder 2. Question 2, I thought it was best to finish off the 7 times table first, so I've got 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63 and 70, and then I've used the answers appropriately to help me. Number 3, complete your divisions, circle the calculation of the greatest remainder. I've done that, but I've forgot to circle. You'd of course circle number C because it has remainder 5. Question 4 was just a simple word problem. However, it is one of those that's quite tricky. Admittedly, if you did get stuck on this one, it'd have been best to draw out the pentagons yourself. Sasha could have made 8 pentagons and she'd have had 4 sticks left over, and that's basically answered in them sentences there. Number 5 was simply division calculations. You could use the bus stop method and then just wrote the answers onto a sheet. I would like to see the working out for this question, because it would be lovely to see how you've done it and what method you've used. And question number 6, there's quite a few steps involved. First of all, we needed to add all the sweets together to find out how many sweets there are in total. And to do that, I've done 38 plus 92 equals 130. Then Mr. P's 136 plus my own 154, which equals 290. Then I've added them 2 answers together, which equaled 420. And then how many sweets does each of a year 4 teacher get? So that is 420 divided by 4. That would equal 105. And then if we got Miss B and Miss D involved as well, which makes 6 teachers, we'd have to divide it by 6, would equal 70 sweets. And how many less would the year 4 teachers get if we did divide it by 6? Well, we'd have to take away 70 from 105 to figure out that we'd get 35 less sweets each if we decided to be nice and share Miss B and Miss D. How did you find those questions? Obviously, if there was any you found particularly difficult or particularly easy, do let me know on Google Classrooms. It'd be interesting to find out. And of course, I don't want, if you're stuck on one question, to define it. Some of these word problems were quite challenging, so you should be really proud that you gave these a go. And then with that said, all there's left for you to do is to self-assess. So now you've completed the lesson, self-assess and leave any comments and feedback on Google Classrooms. So if you're 3, you feel like you've mastered this problem solving using division and you're ready to tackle more problems, you feel confident. If you're 2, you still feel like you want a little bit more practice at this, and perhaps 1 or 2 problems you wasn't sure how to use a division, that's totally fine. However, don't give it a 2 just because if you got stuck on the word problem. For word problems, if they threw you off because of the word problems, it wasn't the division that threw you off, so you might still be a 3. And finally, you're 1 if you still don't know where to start when you see a bus stop method or a division question in general. Right, that is all that's left. Thank you for your time.